Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new here, I'm Alina, and we dive deep into the stories that capture our attention, not just to report the headlines, but to understand the human journeys behind them. Today, we are talking about a story that has, for decades, played out in the living rooms of millions of Americans. It's a story of family, of farming, of overcoming immense challenges, and ultimately, of love. The world of the Roloff family from the hit TLC show, Little People, Big World. The news is out, and it's final. Caryn Chandler and Matt Roloff have officially announced their divorce. After years of a very public courtship, an engagement that had fans hopeful, and a recent period of radio silence that had everyone speculating, the confirmation has come through. It's over. Now, if this was just a simple headline, couple breaks up, we could cover it in a minute. But this is so much more. This isn't just the end of a relationship between two people. This feels, to many, like the end of an era. It's the final, poignant chapter in a saga that has been filled with more twists, turns, drama, and heartache than any scripted television drama could ever hope to contain. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, because today, we are not just talking about a divorce announcement. We are going to rewind the tape. We are going to start at the very beginning, lay out the first, massive twist that set this entire story in motion, and then we're going to trace the winding, often painful, path that has led us to this very moment. We're going to connect the dots, because to understand why this ending feels so significant, you have to understand the incredible story that came before it. So, let's set the stage. Let's go back to the beginning. The first, and perhaps the most earth-shattering, twist. Our story doesn't start with Caryn and Matt. It starts with Matt and Amy. The year is 2004. TLC launches a show called Little People, Big World, centered on the Roloff family in Hillsboro, Oregon. At the helm are Matt and Amy Roloff. Both have dwarfism, and they have built a life and a family on a beautiful, sprawling farm. They have 4 children, twins Jeremy and Zach, who also have dwarfism, and Molly and Jacob, who are of average height. The show was an instant hit. Why? Because it was authentic. It wasn't about the spectacle of their size, it was about the universality of their struggles. It was about parenting, marriage, running a business, and the kids navigating school and life. Matt was the visionary, the dreamer, the relentless entrepreneur with grand plans for the farm, pumpkin season, the pirate ship, the western town. Amy was the heart, the pragmatist, the glue holding the family and the household together, often rolling her eyes at Matt's latest expensive project but, ultimately, being the steady force that made it all work. For years, this was the dynamic. The loving, if sometimes bickering, couple. The parents you rooted for. They faced incredible challenges together, their children's numerous surgeries, the daily physical struggles of living in a world not built for them, the pressures of fame. They seemed like a team. A unit. They were Matt and Amy. Inseparable. But behind the scenes, the cracks were forming. The pressure of the show, their clashing personalities, Matt's big-picture dreaming versus Amy's detail-oriented management, started to create a chasm. Fans began to notice. The bickering felt less playful, more strained. The distance between them, even when they were in the same room, became palpable. Then, in 2010, the first bombshell dropped. Matt and Amy announced they were separating. For the audience, this was a genuine shock. This was the core family unit of the show. The foundation upon which Little People, Big World was built. The idea of the farm, the show, the family without Matt and Amy was unthinkable. It was the twist that no one saw coming, or at least, no one wanted to believe was coming. The separation played out over several painful seasons. We watched as they tried to make it work, living in different houses on the same property. We saw the counseling, the difficult conversations, the raw emotion. Amy was often visibly heartbroken, trying to hold on to what was. Matt seemed more detached, ready to move on to a new chapter. It was real, it was messy, and it was heartbreaking to watch. And then, in 2015, after a multi-year separation, the divorce was finalized. The dream was officially over. Matt and Amy, the couple we had invited into our homes for over a decade, were no more. This was twist number 1. The shattering of the original foundation. But as one door closed, another was already, quietly, beginning to creak open. While Matt and Amy's marriage was crumbling, a new character was entering the periphery of the Roloff story. Her name was Caryn Chandler. Caryn wasn't a stranger. She was a family friend. More specifically, she and her then-husband were close with Matt and Amy. She was even introduced on the show as a friend. But as Matt and Amy's relationship dissolved, Caryn's role began to shift. First, she started helping Matt manage the farm's business, specifically the Roloff Farm's Airbnb cabin rentals. She became his right-hand woman on the farm. Fans, being the astute detectives they are, started to notice. They saw the chemistry. They saw the comfort level. They saw the way Matt seemed lighter, happier around her. The speculation began to swirl. Was there something more between Matt and Caryn? For a long time, it was denied. They were just friends. Colleagues. But the timeline was fuzzy, and the optics were complicated. This is where we get our second major twist, layered right on top of the first. The big question, the one that has haunted this narrative from the very beginning, was, did Caryn and Matt's relationship begin before Matt and Amy's marriage was officially over? Was there an overlap? Amy, in later interviews and in her own book, strongly suggested that there was an emotional affair, if not more. She expressed feeling betrayed, not just by Matt, but by Caryn, a woman she had considered a friend. This allegation cast a long, dark shadow over Matt and Caryn's relationship from the very start. In the court of public opinion, for a significant portion of the fanbase, Caryn would always be the other woman, the reason, or at least a major contributing factor, for the breakup of the original Roloff marriage. This is the crucial context. This is the poison pill at the heart of their love story. No matter how happy they seemed later, there was always this underlying narrative of infidelity and betrayal for a large part of the audience. But Matt and Caryn, they pushed forward. They went public with their relationship in 2017, and for the first time, we got to see them as a couple on the show. And you know what? They seemed good together. They were affectionate, supportive, and shared a common vision for the farm. Matt, who had often seemed stressed and combative with Amy, was relaxed and playful with Caryn. She understood his vision for the farm and supported it wholeheartedly in a way Amy never did. For years, we watched their relationship blossom. They traveled together. They worked on the farm together. They navigated the incredibly awkward and often tense dynamics of family events, where both Amy and Caryn had to be in the same room. Caryn worked hard to build relationships with Matt's adult children, who were, understandably, wary of the woman who had been at the center of so much controversy. And then, in April 2021, on Matt's 59th birthday, came the moment that seemed to signal a true, fresh start. During a trip to Arizona, with their families present, Matt got down on one knee and proposed. Caryn, of course, said yes. The footage was joyful. There were tears, laughter, and it felt like a redemption arc. After all the turmoil, the pain, the public scrutiny, Matt had found love again. They were going to make it official. They were going to get married. The farm would have a new matriarch, and the next chapter of the Roloff legacy was being written. Fans were divided, sure. But many were genuinely happy for them. It seemed like the storm had finally passed. The long, winding road had led them to this happy ending. But as we now know, that was just another twist in the tale. The engagement period should have been the happiest time of their lives. But almost immediately, the clouds began to gather again. The issues that had always lurked beneath the surface of Matt Roloff's life started to resurface with a vengeance. The first and most significant was the farm. For those who haven't followed closely, the fate of Roloff Farms has been the central conflict of the show for the last several years. Matt has poured his heart, soul, and millions of dollars into that property. It's his life's work. His legacy. Naturally, he wanted it to stay in the family. The obvious candidate was his son, Zach. Zach and his wife, Tori, loved the farm. Zach shared his father's passion for it and seemed to want to carry on the legacy. For a while, it looked like a done deal. We saw them negotiate on the show. But the negotiations were fraught. Matt, the businessman, had a very high price tag for the property. Zach, his son, felt he was being treated not like family, but like any other buyer. There were disagreements over which parts of the farm were included, the terms, everything. The deal fell apart. Spectacularly. And it fractured the relationship between Matt and Zach, seemingly beyond repair. Zach and Tori, heartbroken, moved to Washington to start a new life away from the farm and the drama. Now, where was Caryn in all of this? Reportedly, right by Matt's side. And this is where the second major problem emerged, the family dynamics. While Caryn had a decent relationship with some of the kids, her alliance with Matt during the farm negotiations seemingly put her at odds with Zach and Tori. The children, who had already been through the trauma of their parents' divorce under a cloud of suspicion, now saw their father choosing his new fiancée and his business terms over keeping the family heritage intact for his own grandson. This created an immense strain. The family, which was already fragmented, was now splintering further. The happy, blended family future that Matt and Caryn might have envisioned was looking less and less likely. The third issue was, and always has been, the shadow of Amy. Amy didn't just disappear. She moved on, yes. She found love herself with her now husband, Chris Merrick, and they got married in a beautiful ceremony that was a stark contrast to the tension surrounding Matt and Caryn's plans. Amy was thriving. She was happy, she was free from the farm drama, and she had a seemingly simple and loving relationship with Chris. Every time Amy appeared on screen, happy and settled, it was a reminder of the past. It was a reminder of what was lost, and for fans, it was a constant comparison. Matt's life seemed complicated, stressful, and mired in conflict. Amy's life seemed peaceful and joyful. This narrative undoubtedly added pressure on Matt and Caryn. Then came the silence. After the engagement was announced, there was very little news about a wedding. No date was set. No plans were discussed on the show. The social media posts, which had once been frequent and loved up, became less so. Fans started asking, "When is the wedding?" And they were met with vague answers. Matt and Caryn gave interviews where they admitted to having problems. They talked about the stress of the farm, the family issues, the pressure of being in the public eye. The fairy tale engagement was showing its cracks. The dream of a Roloff Farms wedding, which so many had imagined, was fading. The writing was on the wall. The engagement, which had once symbolized a new beginning, was now stalling under the weight of old, unresolved problems. And so, we arrive at the present day. The news we've been leading up to. After nearly 3 years of being engaged, with no wedding in sight, and amid increasing speculation, the official announcement has been made. Caryn Chandler and Matt Roloff are going their separate ways. They have called off the engagement and are divorcing their paths permanently. In their statements, the language is familiar. It's the language of a modern, amicable breakup. They speak of mutual respect, of a difficult decision, of wanting the best for each other. They ask for privacy for themselves and their families during this time. But we have to read between the lines, don't we? Because we know the backstory. We know the history. This wasn't a relationship that failed in a vacuum. It was a relationship that was born from the ashes of another marriage, and it was ultimately consumed by the very same fires that burned the first one down. Think about it. What were the core issues in Matt and Amy's marriage? 1. The farm. It was always a point of contention. Amy saw it as a home, Matt saw it as an empire. 2. Business versus family. Matt's business-first mentality often clashed with Amy's family-first approach. 3. Stubbornness and control. Both are strong-willed people who had a hard time compromising. Now, look at what ended his relationship with Caryn. 1. The farm, the bitter sale negotiations and the family rift it caused became an insurmountable obstacle. 2. Business versus family. Matt's decision to sell part of the farm to a third party instead of to his son was a pure business decision that had devastating family consequences, a situation Caryn was inextricably linked to. 3. Stubbornness and control. It seems the same patterns repeated themselves. The tragic twist, the final, heartbreaking irony of this entire decades-long saga, is that Matt Roloff may be doomed to repeat the same cycles. The very qualities that make him a visionary businessman and a reality TV star, his stubbornness, his grandiosity, his inability to separate his legacy from his land, are the same qualities that have now cost him not one, but two major life partnerships. Caryn came into his life appearing to be the solution, the partner who got him and his dreams for the farm. But in the end, she became collateral damage to those very same dreams. So, where does this leave everyone? Matt, he is now 62 years old. He is alone on his beloved farm, a farm that is now partially sold off, with his children living at a distance, and his second chance at love has evaporated. He has his work, his projects, but the personal cost has been astronomically high. Caryn, she invested nearly a decade of her life into this man and this family. She endured public scorn, the other woman label, and worked to build bridges, only to end up with a broken engagement and a fractured future. Amy, in the ultimate twist of fate, Amy emerges from this whole saga looking like the true victor. She got out. She found a loving partner who prioritizes her happiness over business deals. She has a strong relationship with her children and grandchildren. She is free. The children, they are left to pick up the pieces, again. They have witnessed the dissolution of both of their father's serious relationships, both seemingly torn apart by the same conflicts. The show, Little People, Big World now faces an existential crisis. The central narrative for the past several years has been Matt and Caryn's journey. With that over, and with the children largely living independent lives, what is the show's new focus? The farm? Matt, alone? It feels like the final chapter of the series itself is being written. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, the question remains, what is the real story here? Is it just gossip? Is it just the conclusion of a long-running reality TV plotline? I think it's much, much more than that. The story of Matt, Amy, and Caryn is a profound human cautionary tale. It's a story about the patterns we carry with us. It's about how our greatest strengths can also be our most tragic flaws. Matt Roloff's relentless drive built a farm and a television empire, but that same relentlessness may have cost him his family, twice over. It's a story about the weight of the past. Matt and Caryn's relationship never truly had a clean slate. It was always haunted by the ghost of his marriage to Amy, the circumstances of its end, the comparisons, the unresolved family tensions. You cannot build a stable new house on a foundation that is already cracked and compromised. It's a story about the true cost of ambition. What is more important, your legacy of land, or your legacy of love? For Matt, that has always been a complicated question, and the answers he seems to have chosen have left him with more of the former and less of the latter. And finally, it's a story about closure. For the fans who have watched for 25 seasons, this divorce announcement feels like the true, final end of the Little People,